Welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast. We are in our college football week 6 reactions, and oh my goodness, what a weekend of college football it was. If you love college football upsets, this was the weekend for you. Jimothy and myself, we were back at it with Tubby, the best co-host in the business and the best host in the business last couple of weeks. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Tubby, welcome back to the show, man.
Boy, were we wrong about the games this weekend.
It's
We were like,
it's kind of a dud weekend.
yeah, there's nothing to really watch. There's one or two good games. Boy, that turned out to be a great weekend of college football.
It really did. It spoke for itself, and I will say that it did. There were both, even the Tennessee-Arkansas game. I was like, see, now the Tennessee's turned the corner; they're going to be fine. Alabama, they've turned the corner in the second half; they're going to be fine. Those that just never happened. I mean, Miami, I was like, oh, they're done. When I turned that one down. I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be another one. So Miami did survive yet again. It's classic Miami last couple of years. But Tubby, I mean, well, first, which game were you wanting to talk about first? And we got plenty we can go over. But what's the first one?
I mean, I think the most shocking. We got to talk about Vandy.
Oh, dude, Vandy getting the upset over number one. Wow! After they beat Georgia the week before, this is just a letdown, right? A letdown game.
Yeah, that was 100% going up. Well, we beat Georgia. We got Vandy this week. I mean, even Nick Saban was dogging Vanderbilt on College Game Day, and boy,
come on,
did Diego Pavia put on a show.
Yeah, they were giving comparisons to the Johnny Manziel game against Alabama when he upset them when I think he won the Heisman that year, and I mean it was pretty good comparison, and he was hyped afterwards. I mean, Vandy took the goalpost down. They took it down to downtown Vanderbilt, wherever that is. Absolutely, it was a great game.
Yeah, tossed it in the river there. It was a great game. I think one thing that I will say I noticed at the end of the game was that, and I don't want to speculate so much, but there was an instance with Malachi Moore where he starts throwing a fit on the field like a little kid, and throws his mouthpiece, and then they spot the ball. He goes up there, kicks the ball, then turn around, gets flagged, and then starts yelling at his teammates and stuff again. I'm like, if that would have happened during Nick Saban's era, that kid would not be playing next week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a good point.
The culture part of it, you lose a guy like Nick Saban, and I'm not saying that it's bad culture at Alabama, but it's such a different culture already because they were chirping at Vanderbilt so much that game that
the whole game.
Nick Saban team wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, like obviously Alabama should be fine, right? If you're going to lose early in the year, they're going to be fine, be able to bounce back. They still have the Georgia win on their belt. But I think if you look at this game as far as upsets go, how does this rank in first year Nick Saban era whenever they lost to Louisiana? I think it was Louisiana, Monroe.
Monroe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this one's more just because it may not be the same, it was not a Power 5 team, but this team is better built than that Nick Saban's first team.
Yeah,
talent-wise and stuff still there. I think this one is way bigger, and it just kind of goes to show that Vanderbilt is no pushover this year. I think the last 2 weeks, two things that have kind of really stuck out now is Texas's schedule is not as easy as it seemed at the beginning of the year because you got to play Kentucky, and we know what Kentucky's defense does. Kentucky's defense is staunch. They're tough. They're going to play you tough. And Vanderbilt has proven they're not the same Vanderbilt that they used to be, where they're, you go, oh, well, we got Vanderbilt, so we got a bye week this week.
Yeah.
Besides the Georgia State game where they somehow lost to Georgia State, they should have beat Missouri.
Yep.
And you beat Virginia Tech at the beginning of the year. Now you beat Alabama. Team's no pushover this year.
They're not a pushover. And you mentioned Kentucky in the game that Texas played. Kentucky and Vandy play next week. So maybe we'll talk about that on later in this week's episode for the podcast. But all right, let's move on to Tennessee Tennessee, a top 4 team. It looked like they were rolling, and they come to a screeching halt. Was this game more about it's just a night game in the SEC that it just fell flat, or is this about something bigger?
I think it's something bigger. I think it's Josh Heupel doesn't trust his freshman quarterback.
I would agree.
Because at one point, fourth quarter, he was 12 for 17, but only had 90 yards passing. So that tells you what he was drawing up for him to throw the football was everything short. Wasn't trusting him to, take the shots downfield. And when he did, Nico was overthrowing. I said Thursday, this game made me, there was something about this game that I did not feel right about when it came to Tennessee. And I thought a big part of it was that the hype that they had from beating Oklahoma, then having that off period may have, just kind of lulled them into, some sense of, relaxing and like, oh, we don't have to play as hard. It's Arkansas. Mm-hmm. They're not that great. That game was kind of how I felt it would go. And it just kind of plays back on the OU game where you could tell, they tried to say they throttled back against Oklahoma. It was the fact that Nico had made the mistakes in the pocket. They were like, well, we can't trust him to throw the football against this defensive line. And I think we saw that again. Yeah, he didn't make the same mistakes. He didn't fumble twice. He fumbled once, but they recovered it. But you could tell that he's not completely comfortable in the pocket as much as we thought he was the first few weeks when they were playing the cupcake schedule.
Yeah. I mean, and now you're looking at their schedule. They have Florida, and then I think they have Alabama. So, and then they still have more games down the road. So this is not a cakewalk. Maybe we're going to see some chinks in the armor for Tennessee, but definitely a big upset. I mean, 2 of the top 4 teams going down. You look at a couple of the other top 10 teams that went down. Maybe they'll continue the storyline. We can work our way back to some of the teams that did take care of business, like Oregon, like Ohio State. But Missouri, we talked about this game on Thursday. We're going to see which team is actually for real. And I think at least I thought neither of these teams were really for real. I think Missouri, this loss was absolutely terrible. I mean, they didn't even show up.
No. That defense, when we talked at the beginning of the year, this is what we were worried about was as many players as they lost on the defensive side, would they be able to recuperate and be as good defensively as they were last year? And so far, they have not shown that. And somehow, even only losing Cody Schrader, the running back, the offense just looks non-existent also. I don't know what's going on with that Missouri team. I think last year was kind of a fluke.
It's just what it seems like.
Yeah, I didn't believe the hype. I'm not a big Drinkwitz guy. And so I think that maybe they thought his seat was safe last year, but if they keep on going the way they are, maybe that his hot seat heats up a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, then look at 2 other teams, number 10 and number 11, also lost. So 9, 10, 11 all lost this week, but USC losing on the road to Minnesota and Michigan losing on the road to Washington. These are 2 brand new conference matchups. Which one is the more of a warning sign? We'll put it that way. Michigan's loss or USC?
I don't know if we can split hairs. I think they're both bad. I don't think either team are great. Michigan, the whole quarterback situation, maybe Tuttle looked a lot better than the other 2 guys, at least for somewhat, but that quarterback situation is terrible. Donovan Edwards actually showed up this week, but I think one thing is adamantly clear is that we were right when we talked about Lincoln Riley having to play in the Midwest against these tough Midwestern teams. They were not going to be easy.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is maybe of all 4 teams, this is the bigger statement for Minnesota, just saying like, listen, maybe we're the Kentucky of the Big Ten. Like, if you come play, we're going to play Big Ten football, and we're going to be running the ball a ton. They ran the ball 40 times altogether, and they only passed it 19, while USC they really struggled to move the ball through the air, and they ran the ball effectively. They just didn't run the ball enough. And I think that might be the biggest thing that frustrates me if I look at this, if I'm a USC fan, which I am definitely not. But if I was, I'm like, why didn't we run the ball more? They were average. Outside of Miller Moss, this team was averaging well over 6 yards a carry. It just didn't make sense in the grand scheme of things in a 1-possession game. how you don't manage that, especially when you're up in this game until the fourth quarter. Really played itself out.
Yeah, it really did. And that, I think that's one thing that we have seen from Lincoln Riley in the past is when the run game's working and then he goes away from the run game whenever it's working, you're like, wait, what are we doing here? You found something that works. I think he gets so much in his head, like, oh, well, I'm this mastermind play caller. I can kind of mess with things real quick and it's going to work. Yeah. Well, it's not working right now in out in, California there. And a lot of people are not happy with, the direction of the program right now.
Yeah, I think his seat's definitely getting warm. I don't think it's warm yet, but it's definitely getting warm after the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Looking at some teams that really did just take care of business, Ole Miss beat South Carolina. South Carolina, I mean, this looks like it's not going to be a good year for them. I think that's not a big deal. But obviously Ole Miss rights the ship. Clemson, blink, if they're 3-0 in the ACC, they're 4-1. Cabe Klubnik looks a little bit more like what we expected him to. And then Iowa State is the last team of this little branch of three here that took care of business. Iowa State taking care of Baylor. Which one of these teams is – I mean, we're actually seeing a good, solid team that could represent their team in maybe a championship game.
I'm going to say Iowa State just because I like the way they play football. And it's nothing against Alabama or Clemson. It's just, I mean, at least we know Clemson more than likely is going to play, or at least has a really good chance to play in the ACC championship game. But what do they do outside of that? I don't know. We saw in week one just get absolutely destroyed by Georgia. I don't know if they could really hold up against most other teams outside of the ACC offensive-wise, because right now we are clearly seeing the ACC is really bad. I mean, it's not even good. It's really bad. And I think that Iowa State is going to play more competitive teams throughout the season and probably make them a little more prepared going forward.
Yeah, I would agree too. I think the Big 12 also is more open. We can get to that here in a second. But Clemson looks like they're on the path to 10 wins in the regular season.
Yeah.
And maybe one of those losses is outside the conference anyway. Outside of Georgia, excuse me. If they have both losses, they could be out of conference. If you look at Ole Miss, we're about to see them go against LSU. They have Oklahoma, at Arkansas, Georgia, at Florida. I mean, this is not – and then they have a rivalry game. So they're going to have to really keep things tight and crisp if they want to make sure that they can make a push, like I said, for the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure about it.
Yeah, that Kentucky game really hurt them.
Yeah, you can't. That's what you just got to have. But Kentucky's, they're not messing around. They're a good team.
No.
You called this game SMU over Louisville. You legit called it. I just want to give credit where credit is due. That was a good game by SMU. 2-0 in the ACC now. I mean, look at this. This is a newcomer.
Yeah. They changed up quarterbacks. They had, Preston Stone was slow to start. They want, their one loss is to BYU. And BYU right now, look at BYU. They're undefeated. So, I mean, you can't really hold that against them a whole lot. But this new quarterback that they put in, he has made this offense so much more dynamic. And this team is a team I think that can compete with Clemson and in Miami in the ACC. And I think it's a 3-team race for 2 spots.
Yeah. Well, tell me, is Boise State a legit threat for a playoff run?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ashton Jeanty is the best player in college football right now.
And should he win a Heisman? If it was him or the field, who are you taking right now?
I'm taking Jeanty. If he keeps up, I mean, he's on.
He didn't even get to run in the second half.
No, I mean, I don't know what it's up to now, but I mean, I talked about it last week when you were gone that he was averaging 10.3 yards per carry.
Yeah, he's at 10.9 now.
That's just, I mean, absolutely absurd. He's on pace to break Barry Sanders' single season rushing, yards record. I mean, the numbers that he's putting up, because what is he up to? 16 rushing touchdowns now too. I mean, absolutely stupid. Yeah, absolutely just stupid number. The lowest amount of yards he has in a game this year is 127.
Yeah. So
he didn't play the second half. That was on 10 carries.
It was incredible, and I saw what his first half is, and I was like, I don't know if they're going to play in the second half. I don't know why they would.
Yeah.
So that's the Heisman front runner right now. I think Travis Hunter's still a fan favorite. If they can keep putting some wins together, if they can get to 8 wins, which I think is a tall order, But if they can, I think that he's going to stay on the front burner for a lot of people for that Heisman race because of what he does on both sides of the ball, of course.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's run through this pretty quick because we're running out of time. When it comes to this season right now, is there a team outside the top 25 that either you're just like, oh, man, this is not good, or, hey, they're making strides in the right direction? I'll give you a second to think about it. The Big 12 is not looking like we expected to. There are some teams. I mean, you talked about Iowa State. You called that at the beginning of the year. You like them. Utah is still competitive. I think with that Cam Rising, it's been a struggle. I just think the Big 12 overall is a little bit more of a mess than what we expected. And Oklahoma State has been an absolute disaster.
Yeah. I think the team that has just kind of really shocked me the most, and I don't know what direction, how they're 1-5 right now, is Kansas. I mean, I was on the Kansas hype train. I was on the Jalen Daniels hype train. I really thought that this kid had something. I mean, he didn't play bad yesterday, but the game, week before, the turnovers have been a huge problem for him. And there's something not right about them. Offensive wise, it just, I don't know. I really thought that this team had a chance to compete and potentially make the playoffs by winning the Big 12.
Here's our problem. I think we fell into the beautiful talent that is Jalen Daniels. And the reality is it has been 2 years.
Yeah, it really has.
So sometimes people just realize that. That's the lesson we learned. Florida's 3-2 now. Look at that. They beat an in-state team. Look at this. Yeah. It's a weird football season. We are so grateful that you guys have chose to be a part of the W Podcast as we go about this full year. Don't worry. We will be back again for more college football preview weekend, Red River rivalry. Who knows? Maybe we can sneak in a guest here as well just to talk about it. It's going to be a great weekend of college football. If you have not already, make sure you go ahead and hit subscribe to our channel so that way you can be entered into our giveaway, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to tell you what category it is. It is a jersey. So, okay, if you want to be in the running to win this jersey, make sure you subscribe to the show. Till then, though, see y'all next time.
See ya.
See ya.